My name is Evelyn. I was 26 years old when this happened, and even now I feel a strange tightness in my chest whenever I talk about that period of my life. At the time, I believed that time had erased everything, but some memories don't age. They only grow quieter, waiting for the right moment to return. I had moved to a small town, far from everything I knew, trying to escape a past that was slowly consuming me. No one there knew me, no one asked questions, and that felt perfect. I rented a simple, old house on the edge of town, surrounded by tall trees that kept the place in constant shade. On the first night, I remember taking a deep breath, lying down on a mattress without sheets, believing that silence meant peace. I was wrong. It started so subtly that, for a long time, I refused to give it any importance. Every single night, without exception, at 11:47, I heard 3 slow knocks. They didn't come from the door or the windows. It felt like they came from inside the house itself, as if someone were knocking from behind the walls. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Old houses make noise, wood cracks, pipes vibrate. I repeated that to myself while the sound echoed through the empty living room. 3 knocks. Always 3. I tried to ignore it, turned up the TV, played music, pretended everything was normal. But the silence after the knocks was worse than the sound itself. It was a heavy, attentive silence, as if something were waiting for me to react. After a few weeks, I began to notice other things. Objects would move. Nothing big, nothing obvious. A chair slightly pulled away from the table. A glass I was sure I had left in the sink appearing on the counter. I lived alone. I never had visitors. Even so, I started to doubt my own memory. Maybe I was too tired, maybe the move had affected me more than I realized. But the feeling of being watched grew stronger every day. Sometimes I felt sudden chills, as if someone were standing right behind me, and when I turned around, there was nothing. Just the house, far too quiet. The first time I felt real fear was on a rainy night. The knocks were stronger that night. They weren't 3. There were 6. I was sitting on the couch, all the lights turned on, trying to force my body to relax. My heart was racing in a way I had never felt before. I stood up slowly and walked down the hallway, every step heavy, every breath short. I called out, asking if someone was there. My own voice sounded strange, weak, like it didn't belong in that place. There was no answer, just the sound of the rain, and then a few seconds later, 3 more knocks, this time coming from my bedroom door. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the bathroom floor, hugging my knees, counting the minutes until sunrise. When morning came, everything looked normal, too normal. No signs of forced entry, no marks on the walls, nothing that could prove I wasn't losing my mind. I thought about leaving, giving the house back, walking away from everything. But something inside me hesitated. A strange feeling, almost like guilt, as if leaving meant abandoning something unfinished. So I stayed. Over time, I started dreaming about the house. In my dreams, I walked through the hallways and saw doors that didn't exist in real life. Doors I felt I should never open. There was always someone on the other side, breathing, waiting. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, and when I looked at the clock, the time was always the same. 11:47. I began to fear the nights. The daytime became nothing more than a countdown. One night, I decided to face it. I stayed awake, sitting in the living room, all the lights turned off, only the faint moonlight coming through the windows. When the knocks began, I stood up and followed the sound. It led me to an old closet I almost never opened. My hands were shaking as I turned the handle. Inside, there were no clothes, no boxes, just a wooden wall, different from the rest of the house. In the center of it, carved deeply, was my name, Evelyn, my name. My legs nearly gave out. I had never written that there, never. The air grew heavy. Behind me, I heard slow breathing, far too close. I didn't have the courage to turn around. Something inside me knew that if I looked, I would never be able to pretend again. I ran out of the house that same night, without taking anything, without looking back. But that didn't last forever. 2 days later, I returned. I came back with 2 friends, people I trusted, because I wouldn't have been able to cross that doorway alone. It was broad daylight, the sun high in the sky, and the house looked ordinary, almost harmless. Even so, the air inside still felt heavy, as if something were simply waiting for us. We went in quickly in silence, and I gathered only what was essential. Clothes, documents, small personal items. Everything I couldn't take with me or didn't have the courage to keep was packed in a hurry. Some things I donated, others I simply threw away, as if getting rid of them could break any remaining connection to that place. I avoided the hallway. I avoided looking at the closet. My friends noticed my nervousness, but they didn't ask questions. While we packed, I felt that same sensation of being watched, even with voices, footsteps, and nervous laughter filling the house. At one point, one of them mentioned that the place felt too cold, even though it was summer. The others said they thought they heard a strange noise coming from the back, something like knocking. I froze. I didn't say a word. I just asked to leave. We were gone before sunset, leaving behind sealed boxes, old furniture, and a part of my life I no longer wanted to recognize. That night, I went straight to a friend's house, where I stayed for weeks, sleeping in a borrowed room, trying to recover even the smallest sense of safety. Sometime later, I managed to transfer the house to someone else. I didn't ask who would live there. I didn't want details. I just signed what needed to be signed and cut every tie with that place. I spent some time staying with friends, trying to reorganize my life far from that house, avoiding memories of what had happened. I chose not to explain the real reason for my sudden departure, telling people only that the house wasn't what I expected. All that mattered then was moving forward, putting distance between myself and that address, and leaving behind the walls, the sounds, and the invisible marks that place had left on me.